Imagine this for a second. What if the most dangerous person in your life is not the loudest one, not the angriest one, not even the one everyone warns you about right away, but the one who smiles while your world slowly falls apart? What if the real threat is someone who can look calm, sound convincing, act normal, and still enjoy confusion, pain, and control more than peace, truth, or love? Stay with me, because this is not just about a difficult personality. This is about something much darker. There comes a point when some people stop being selfish, stop being toxic, and become destructive in a way that feels cold, deliberate, and deeply disturbing. They do not just hurt people in moments of weakness. They study people. They test limits. They learn where your heart is soft and then press there without mercy. And the worst part? By the time you fully see it, you may already be trapped inside their version of reality. So listen closely. What you are about to hear may explain the heaviness you could never put into words, the exhaustion you could never fully name, and the reason some people leave you feeling empty even when they barely touched you. And when we get to the final sign, you will understand why walking away is not dramatic. It is survival. There comes a moment when a person stops being merely hard to deal with and becomes something much more dangerous. They do not simply lie. They do not simply manipulate. They become committed to damage. They start choosing destruction the way other people choose honesty or kindness. At first, it is subtle. They still wear a mask. They still act caring when it serves them. They still know how to sound concerned, how to look wounded, how to perform innocence. But over time, something changes. The pleasure they take in chaos becomes harder to hide. The smile lasts a little too long when someone is embarrassed. Their eyes sharpen when somebody breaks down. Their voice gets calmer, not rougher, when they know they are causing pain. And that is when you start to sense it. This is not accidental. This is not just anger talking. This is not someone losing control for one bad moment. This is someone feeling powerful because another person is suffering. Let that sink in. Most people hurt others out of fear, stress, jealousy, or emotional weakness. But a person who has fully given themselves over to cruelty does something different. They feed on the effect they create. They do not regret it later. They replay it. They enjoy the impact. They want to see the confusion on your face, the collapse in your confidence, the tremble in your voice. And once you notice that pattern, once you see that pain is not a side effect for them, but a reward, you can never unsee it. Watch what happens when they shame someone in front of others. Watch how they react after they twist the truth and leave a person doubting their own memory. Do they look uncomfortable? Do they pull back? Do they show even a flicker of guilt? Or do they seem energized, almost brighter, as if your distress gave them something they were hungry for? That is the first terrifying sign. They draw strength from the damage they create. They are not satisfied by love, loyalty, patience, or sacrifice. Those things do not fill them, but your pain does, your confusion does, your emotional collapse does, and the closer you are to them, the more powerful they feel. That is why they often hurt the people nearest to them the most. A stranger may get a cold version of them, a partner gets the full storm, a friend gets tested, a family member gets used, a child may become a mirror, a target, or a tool. Nothing you give is ever enough because what they really want cannot be given freely. They want to watch someone shrink under pressure. They want to see another person lose clarity, dignity, and strength. And if you have lived through this, you already know how draining it feels. You explain, you forgive, you try harder, you stay loyal, you hope your patience will soften them. But the truth is brutal. Your goodness does not heal a person who enjoys the breaking of good things. Keep listening, because the second sign is where it becomes even more chilling. This is where they stop merely controlling people and begin controlling reality itself. At some point, they no longer bother hiding behind believable lies. They begin reshaping truth in real time. Facts do not matter. Evidence does not matter. Witnesses do not matter. All that matters is the version of events that protects their image, feeds their control, or destroys your credibility. One moment they said it, the next moment they never did. One day they are the victim. The next day they are the hero. Then suddenly they are the wounded soul nobody understands. Their story changes fast, but their confidence never breaks. That is what makes it so unsettling. They say false things with such certainty that even people who know better can start doubting themselves. This is not ordinary dishonesty. This is a total assault on perception. They will take your memory, your intentions, your reactions, and your pain and turn all of it into proof against you. Push back, and you are too sensitive. Ask questions, and you are unstable. Point to facts, and you are accused of attacking them. Before long, you are no longer discussing what happened. You are defending your sanity, and that is exactly where they want you. Hold on to that, because this is how domination works when someone has no respect for truth. They confuse the room. They exhaust the target. They repeat the lie until the lie sounds organized and your truth sounds emotional. They move quickly. They plant seeds early. They tell half stories to other people. They frame you before you ever speak. So when the moment comes and you try to explain what really happened, the ground is already gone beneath your feet. This is where many people get trapped for years. Not because they are weak, but because reality itself starts to feel slippery around this kind of person. You remember the conversation one way. They insist it happened another way. You know what they promised. They deny it with a straight face. You felt insulted, cornered, or humiliated, and somehow the whole discussion ends with you apologizing. That is not normal conflict. That is psychological control. They rewrite the past to own the present. They distort the present so they can control the future. And if exposure threatens them, they often move fast and hard. They may smear your name, twist private moments, recruit sympathy, or present themselves as the one being harmed. Their lies become bolder because they no longer care if the lie makes sense. It only needs to work long enough to turn people against you, to buy them time, to keep you off balance. And many do believe them because confidence is persuasive when truth is tired and emotionally drained. This is why people around them sometimes feel confused but cannot explain why. Something feels wrong, yet their performance is polished enough to create doubt. And that doubt is their weapon. If they can make you question your memory, your instincts, and your emotional right to react, then they do not need chains. Your confusion becomes the cage. So if you have been living in mental fog, replaying conversations, checking your own memory again and again, wondering if you are the problem, that may be the clearest proof that you are standing too close to someone who bends reality for power. Then comes the third sign, and this is where the mask often falls for good. They stop pretending to care about conscience. They stop acting as if right and wrong matter. So they may still use moral language when it helps them look good, but inside there is no real restraint left. Shame does not stop them. Guilt does not correct them. Consequences do not wake them up. They can harm someone, sleep peacefully, and wake up ready to do it again. That emptiness is terrifying when you finally see it clearly. You confront them, hoping for even one human crack in the armor, a pause, a regretful look, a sign that somewhere deep down they know what they did. But what you often get instead is a blank stare, a cold shrug, or a small smile that tells you your hope means nothing to them. And that is when it hits hard. You are trying to reach a conscience that is no longer involved. You are asking for empathy from someone who experiences your pain as inconvenience, entertainment, or leverage. Stay with me here because this part matters. A person without inner restraint becomes dangerous in ways most people underestimate. They do not stop when you cry. They do not stop when the family is breaking. They do not stop when children are affected, reputations are destroyed, or peace is gone from the home. If anything, the lack of limits makes them feel larger, freer, more untouchable. They begin to act like rules are for other people, like decency is weakness, like compassion is something to mock. You may notice they grow irritated around honesty, kindness, loyalty, or spiritual conviction. Anything pure unsettles them. Anyone living by values they cannot imitate for long starts to bother them. Why? Because goodness exposes what they have become. Real integrity is a mirror they cannot stand. So instead of facing it, they attack it. They mock your beliefs. They laugh at your standards. They belittle faith, responsibility, and truth. They pressure you to compromise. They test whether your values can be bent. They provoke you until you react, then use your reaction to prove you are the unstable one. This is how darkness spreads through people like this, not always with dramatic evil, but with constant erosion. Bit by bit, boundary by boundary, lie by lie, you stop speaking up. You stop trusting yourself. You start explaining what should be obvious. You You start accepting, behavior you once would have rejected immediately. And that is the trap. They do not just want control over your actions. They want control over your standards. Because once your standards collapse, their world becomes easier to survive in. That is why the charm disappears so quickly when you resist. The pleasant face fades, the sweet tone hardens, the contempt comes out. Suddenly you see the bitterness beneath the performance. It was always there. You just were not meant to see it until you became hard to control. And if this is sounding familiar, do not look away from that truth. Sometimes clarity feels painful because it arrives at the exact moment illusion dies. And there is something else people rarely talk about enough. It is not only what they say or do, it is what being around them feels like. Their presence can feel heavy, draining, and strangely disorienting. You walk into a room feeling fine, then leave feeling guilty, tense, smaller, or mentally exhausted. A short conversation can leave you replaying everything for hours. A single look from them can make you second guess your tone, your timing, your worth. That is not because they possess magic. It is because they are highly attuned to emotional pressure and know how to use atmosphere as a weapon. They know when to go silent. They know when to smirk. They know when to withhold warmth, offer crumbs of approval, or shift the mood just enough to make everyone uncomfortable. And once that discomfort fills the room, they can shape what happens next. They create tension, then act above it. They trigger conflict, then step aside and watch it spread. They feed off reaction. The more upset you become, the calmer they may appear. The more you explain, the more powerful they feel. This is why every interaction starts feeling like a test you can never pass. There is always a hidden rule. The rules change without warning. What pleased them yesterday irritates them today. What they demanded before, they now deny. And if you keep trying to win the game, you lose more energy, more confidence, and more of yourself. That is why one of the strongest things you can do is stop playing. Not because you failed, but because the game was built to consume you. They also know how to create dependency in deeply confusing ways. First they wound, then they comfort. First they break trust, then they offer themselves as the only safe place. First they create the chaos, then they step in like the one person who understands the pain. And this pattern can trap even smart, strong, aware people because it mixes harm with relief. It mixes fear with attachment. It teaches your nervous system to look toward the same person who caused the injury. And once that cycle is in place, leaving becomes emotionally difficult even when the truth is obvious. You may start missing them while still hurting from them. You may feel guilty for stepping back. You may wonder if you are being too harsh, too cold, too unforgiving. But listen carefully. Protecting yourself from deliberate harm is not cruelty. Refusing manipulation is not hatred. Walking away from psychological violence is not weakness. It is wisdom. It is recovery. It is the beginning of your mind returning to you. And yes, they may not like it. They may chase, charm, rage, blame, promise, accuse, or suddenly act transformed. That does not always mean change. Often it means loss of access. They are reacting not to your pain, but to your distance. They feel the control slipping, and that is what alarms them. So if you leave with clarity. Do not expect closure from the one who profited from your confusion. Do not wait for a clean confession from the one who lived through denial. Sometimes your closure is the pattern itself. Sometimes your peace begins the moment you stop asking the person who harmed you to finally explain why. The hardest truth for many people is accepting that you cannot rescue someone who does not want to be accountable. You cannot love another person into conscience. You cannot argue them into empathy. You cannot explain your pain so perfectly that they suddenly become moved by it if they have built themselves around power, image, and domination. That realization hurts because hope keeps many people attached for far too long. Hope says, maybe this time they will hear me. Maybe this time they will understand. Maybe the kind version is the real one and the cruel version is just wounded. But when the pattern repeats, when the same cycle keeps returning, when the apologies feel empty and the damage grows sharper, hope can become the very thing keeping you in danger. There is a difference between seeing pain in someone and giving them permission to create pain in you. There is a difference between compassion and self-abandonment, and many people do not realize they cross that line until they are completely worn down. So let me say this clearly. You do not owe endless chances to a person who uses chances as cover. You do not owe explanations to someone committed to misunderstanding you. You do not owe your energy to someone who treats your humanity like a resource to drain. Sometimes the bravest decision is quiet. No scene, no speech, no final dramatic showdown, just distance, just boundaries, just a firm refusal to keep carrying what was never yours. And when you do that, the silence may feel strange at first, then it starts to feel clean, then strong. Then life-giving. As that distance grows, something remarkable begins to happen. The mental fog starts lifting. Your body relaxes in places you forgot were tense. Your thoughts come back in full sentences instead of anxious fragments. You stop rehearsing imaginary arguments. You stop checking every word before you speak. You begin to trust your own memory again. Food tastes normal. Sleep gets deeper. Quiet stops feeling threatening. That is not small. That is your system recovering from sustained emotional pressure. It is your mind stepping out of survival mode. It is your identity returning after being forced to bend around someone else's chaos. And this is why leaving can feel both painful and freeing at the same time. Painful because illusion is ending. Freeing because truth is beginning. You begin to see that the exhaustion was not random. The confusion was not your personality. The constant self-doubt was not proof that you were broken. It was the natural result of living too close to someone who survives by destabilizing others. Once that source is removed, your inner world has room to breathe again. And if you are in that stage right now, keep going, even if it feels slow. Even if some days you miss what hurt you. Even if part of you still wants one final answer. Recovery is not always dramatic. Sometimes it is simply waking up one day and noticing their voice is no longer the loudest voice in your head. And that matters more than you know. Because when their noise gets quieter, your truth gets louder. So here is the full picture. When a person gives themselves fully to manipulation, cruelty, and control, the warning signs become impossible to ignore. They enjoy the harm they create. They bend reality until truth feels unstable. They live without guilt and attack whatever is honest, decent, or pure because goodness exposes them. Their presence drains, their words trap, their patterns repeat. They may look composed on the outside, but what drives them is hunger for power, hunger for reaction, hunger for dominance. And no, not everyone who lies is this dangerous. Not everyone difficult is beyond reach. But when these signs come together again and again, take them seriously. Do not minimize what your body already knows. Do not wait for a disaster big enough to justify leaving. Do not let loyalty chain you to destruction. If this message is hitting you hard, that may be because some part of you has known the truth for a long time. You were just waiting for language strong enough to match what you felt. And now you have it. You are not powerless. You are not trapped forever. You are not required to stay in reach of someone who thrives on your collapse. Step back, protect your mind, guard your energy, let them lose access. Let the performance end without your participation. Let your peace become more important than their approval. And if this opened your eyes even a little, hold on to that clarity. Rewatch these signs in your mind. Trust what you have seen. Because the moment you stop calling destruction love, the moment you stop calling control protection, the moment you stop calling cruelty confusion, everything starts to change. And that change can save your life.